What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Craftavore Tastes. I'm your host, Max. And today we're going to dive into a review that I was a little bit excited about, but excited about for a specific reason. Today's beer that we're actually going to be diving into is Troegs Nugget Nectar, the 2018 vintage. And the reason why I was excited about today's review is because, for folks that are really familiar with Nugget Nectar, some who have been into the craft beer hobby for a while might consider it at this point a classic. But what's super interesting about Nugget Nectar is the fact that, it wasn't too long ago where this beer was super hard to get, right? Had a lot of trade value. It was difficult to get, not a tremendous amount of distribution. And really probably only maybe 3-4 years ago. And then suddenly, distribution started increasing. They started making more quantities. It became a little less harder to get, but still, kind of relatively up there. Got a little bit of hype behind it. And then eventually it started getting easier and easier, right? And now eventually we get to 2018, and I literally picked this up at my local supermarket. There was a massive end cap, the size of a small van, where I could pick up as many 6-pack bottles or 12 packs and cans that I wanted. So not only is today's review obviously about the 2018 vintage of the beer itself, but it's also a little bit of a discussion, maybe about how maybe our palates have changed and how maybe folks are rating and reviewing beers that just a couple of years ago might have been kind of considered new and innovative, but now, because a lot of our palates have changed and a lot of styles have changed, are people reviewing the beers objectively and in the same way? I don't know. I did a little research. I took a look at my Untapped profile, and the highest rating that I ever gave Nugget Nectar was a 4.25. That was back in 2014. Lowest I ever gave it was a 3.5, and that was only because the beer, or the bottle that I had opened up that time was a little bit older. But I made sure to mention that during the check-in itself. So, it kind of ran the gamut, but basically the average that I used to give this beer was a 4 caps on Untapped. So, really the point is I'm just going to go and be objective, right? I'm going to dive into kind of this beer and I'm going to kind of see, does it hold up? Does it still kind of have a lot of that punch that I remember? Is it a beer, if I'm objectively looking at the style and what it is it still really, really, really good? Or, has it become a little passé? I don't know. Let's go ahead and get her open and let's give it a shot. All right? I'm just going to open her up right now. Obviously, Nugget Nectar is released every year, usually late January, early February, around that time. It is Troegs winter seasonal. So just going to get this guy straight right into a glass and give you a kind of a nice little look at it. Go. Put that guy right over here. All right, so appearance first, right? Beautiful beer. Nugget Nectar was always a gorgeous beer, and this is nothing different. Super nice amber, dark, kind of almost orange, basically copper color, right? I've heard it kind of described as orange, and that's definitely true. If we get there a little bit just into the light, you can definitely see, obviously, there is some orange there, but it has a little bit more deeper kind of brown notes in certain areas, so I like to kind of call it, a little bit more copper or even kind of bronze. But it's a gorgeous beer in the glass, super clear. So for all you haze crazers out there, yes, it is clear. It always has been clear. But it looks gorgeous in the glass. Not sure the way that basically I poured that, but really little to no head. Let's see if I can just kind of swirl her around a little bit, see it get a little bit more. Slight little bit of head, compact bubbles, not too much, probably not even a finger's worth. All right, so let's dive our nose into it, and get ourselves an aroma. Still has that punch. Getting a tremendous amount of pine and resin. Sticky pine and resin, even maybe a little bit of underlying mango there, just a little bit of fruits. That's a little bit underneath, though. Like the dominating flavor in the aroma itself is definitely pine and resin. But you do get a little bit of mango notes and maybe even a little bit of kind of sweet apricot there. So it still smells really great, right? Obviously, again, we're going to objectively review this beer. Does it have the nose of what is kind of traditional for, New England style IPAs or something of that nature today, or things that are double dry hopped? No, it does not. It never meant to. This is an Imperial Red Ale coming in, or excuse me, an Imperial Amber Ale coming in at 7.5 ABV. So completely different style. But the aroma is still there, right? You get a little bit of sticky, like sweet malts underneath there lying as well. Maybe a little bread, maybe even a little underlying graham cracker. But ultimately, in the end, what the aroma truthfully is pine, resin, sticky malts, sweet malts, with a little bit of just underlying mango and maybe even apricot kind of citrus notes, all right? So let's go ahead and give ourselves a taste, all right? Cheers. Similarly on the taste, a lot of that hop punch that kind of you get a little bit there, a little bit of that pininess and that stickiness and that resininess in the nose doesn't really kind of follow through on the taste, at least not in this vintage. It's definitely more bready. I'm getting a lot of malts as we kind of drink through. It's crisp, it's clean, but really just kind of like those sweet bready malts are kind of coming a little bit more forward in the actual taste. Not getting a lot of alcohol present. You'd be shocked to know that this was 7.5% ABV. So ultimately, in the end, relatively dangerous. Go ahead and get another sip. Yeah. Again, maybe a little bit of pine there on the finish. Again, but mostly the taste is definitely sweet malts, bread, cracker notes coming up front. And then, yes, actually now, so the second sip there is helping me a little bit. You do get a little bit of that kind of piney, resinous citrus notes kind of layering in. So actually very similarly to the aroma, it's definitely there. It's just a little bit playing or dancing in on the back end there. All right, so with that said, we did the appearance, we did the taste, we did the aroma. So let's go ahead and give her a rating, all right? Objectively, right? This is still a really good beer. If you're out there and you have distribution or you can get Troegs, and Nugget Nectar is nearby wherever it is that you buy beer, go ahead and buy a 6-pack of it. Buy a 12-pack of it even if you want in cans. Yeah, obviously that there's new styles out there, but there's a place for this beer too. It's still really good. In terms of a rating, honestly, I'm going to give it a 3.75 caps. Knocking it down just a little bit from the 4 or even the 4.25 at the height I used to, and that has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that the beer is now a shelf beer or it's easier to obtain or there's not that much hype around it anymore. It has nothing to do with that actually. What it just has to do with is that it does not have as much of that kind of citrus punch as I kind of remember. It's not as aggressive as I remember. It doesn't feel as big. Again, it's very kind of crisp, but it does kind of feel, like a recipe that they've increased production on, right? So, but again, really fantastic beer. I mean, the price point on it is not bad. I think the beer was first brewed in 2004, so, hey, it's 2018. It's 14 years later. I think they've done a pretty good job of kind of keeping this beer as relevant as it possibly can be for 14 years. And you know what? The recipe's still darn pretty good. So if it's out there and you see it, pick it up, right? You may just remember how good Nugget Nectar was when you first originally had it. All right? So that does it for me. Hope you join me on another episode of the Craftavore Tastes, where I drink, I review, I rate, and then I repeat. Cheers.